All right, if you just look at me.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, you could look at me the whole time.
Sure.
Don't move the camera.
Very good.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm coming down into 3 and a 2 and a 1. Joining me now is Peter Thompson. He is the president of the United Nations General Assembly. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, you as the GA president have a unique position and a perspective as far as being the first to come from one of the Pacific island states.
Yeah, that's correct, actually. Yeah.
Okay, tell us what that really means in terms of your perspective, because Fiji is a small island state, but it's also really involved in a lot of key UN issues.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, I think a lot of people look at me and think, well, it doesn't look like a Pacific Islander, but I'm actually a 5th generation Fijian. My background all my life has been in development. Started off in rural development in Fiji back in 1971 as a district officer. So I've always been concerned about the welfare of coastal communities, and I right from those days started to notice the atrophying of the marine environment, coastal systems and so on. And that, as you know, has just got worse and worse. So I think I bring a perspective of climate change, because that's one of the major changes in the coastal and oceanographic world, climate change, but also what is actually happening to the ocean itself. I bring that perspective because from the small island developing states like Fiji, it's critical to our survival. Indeed, you know, the more you learn about it, the more you discover that it's critical to humanity's survival on this planet, because so much depends on the ocean. Every second breath you take is from the oxygen from the ocean.
Well, I recall you said it's kind of the lifeblood of the planet, the oceans, and you also talked about how we're poisoning the oceans.
Yeah, and that's by no means an overstatement. You imagine that by the year 2050, on current trends, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than there will be marine life. I mean, that's just staggering. You only have to look at the fact that 80% of our fish stocks are at tipping points of stress. You know, we've already done that, human beings, we've done that to the Atlantic cod. What are we going to do next? Tuna, you know, are we going to be satisfied when we've basically eradicated all major fish stocks in the ocean? Is that when we say enough? No, we have to say enough now. We have to start managing our ocean resources in a sustainable way and stop the overfishing, illegal fishing and so on that's going on now.
The illegal fishing issue has been something that's, I mean, I've been here at the UN almost 20 years now. It's something that's been bounced around, particularly with law of the sea issues and so forth and so on. And there doesn't always seem to be a clear resolution, but it doesn't get, I mean, it doesn't get the attention it deserves.
I agree. And that's why for the last 7 years here at the United Nations, I've been fighting on behalf of the ocean as a representative of one of the SIDS, one of the small island developing states. And first of all, we got the Sustainable Development Goal 14, the oceans goal, put into the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 agenda. That's really, really important for everybody to appreciate, because that is the only universal measure that humanity has adopted to save our oceans, the only one. Every one of the 193 member states of the United Nations adopted that goal to sustain and conserve the ocean. So we're all committed to that. So the question now is, how do we hold ourselves accountable to it? How do we implement it? And that's where the Ocean Conference, which is being held on the 5th to the 9th of June this year, less than 3 months away now, is going to be the first moment of accountability, where we assess the state of the ocean, its problems, and we put forward the solutions, and then that's our work plan going forward to the next moment of accountability, which I imagine will be in about another 3 years' time. And we'll march onwards with that, continuing accountability to SDG 14 through to the end of the mandate, which is, as you know, the year 2030.
I think you left out one modest detail. Fiji's co-hosting that, right?
Fiji is. You'd appreciate that I'm no longer the Fiji representative. I'm the President of the General Assembly at the conference. But the co-presidents will be, yes, Fiji and Sweden. The governments of Fiji and Sweden will be the co-presidents. And we expect that conference to be the game changer, the moment where we turn things around. We've put the ocean into this cycle of decline. The week at the United Nations in the first week of June, where we consider this, will be the week in which we start reversing that cycle.
I think that also makes sense because Fiji was the first country to ratify the Paris Accord? I think one of the first?
Yes. Now, let me get this right. Fiji was the first country to sign the United Nations Law of the Sea Convention.
Right,
we were the first there. For the Paris Climate Change Agreement, we were the first country to ratify. That's correct.
Yeah.
Not that we're hasty, it's just that we care about the climate of the world and we care about the state of the ocean. And being out there in the middle of the Pacific, you'd understand why.
I think one of the things also that you've been witness to is the choosing of a new Secretary General. A very tumultuous, tension-filled world we're in right now. There was a lot of drama going on with that. Can you tell us about that whole process of presiding over that?
Well, I think drama in the sense that it was the first time that it was such an open process. We really had a very transparent, I would say, democratic process running in the General Assembly during the last session, where all of the candidates got equal opportunities on the platform to demonstrate what their vision was for the United Nations and to go through interactive Q&As and all the rest. So that was a really good process. There were debates, and I think the proof is in the pudding. You know, we first of all, I think, made it much easier for the Security Council than it's been in the past, and they, as you know, unanimously agreed on the selection of Mr. Guterres. And I think everybody's agreed that we got the best person we could possibly get for the job out of that process. So I would say hats off to the General Assembly. We really pegged one there. And the job now, of course, and we've been doing that in recent months, is to preserve those gains. And we're looking at ways of preserving those gains so that when we select our next Secretary General, be it in 5 or 10 years' time, that we will be able to retain improvements that were made and perhaps step forward in terms of even greater transparency in the selection process. And in that regard, of course, it's the ad hoc working group on GA revitalization, which is the relevant body to consider how to capture and improve on that process. But I think hats off to the UN system. We did well in the selection of our Secretary General and in the transition from the old Secretary General who had been there for 10 years to the new one who's come in and hit the ground running.
The GA also has a responsibility when it comes to who's on the Security Council. Mm-hmm. And what about expansion of the Security Council?
It is, as you know, a ongoing matter of debate at the United Nations. In my time here, I've never heard a country argue against Security Council reform. Everybody agrees that we have to reform to keep the organization relevant and most fit for purpose. And that obviously includes Security Council reform. The question is what the nature of that reform will be, and that's what all the debate is about, of course. I've asked for flexibility amongst the well-known positions of the half dozen or so groups that have coalesced in positions around Security Council reform. I've asked for greater flexibility. I'm sure that reform is possible. I personally have undertaken reform of this organization, and my reform was not as complex as Security Council reform, but I witnessed that this is an organic institution that we do change with the times.
Since taking the post as the President of the General Assembly, what surprised you? What did you expect, and what might have surprised you along the way so far? Lessons learned?
Look, I'd have to say that there haven't been any surprises. I was the acting President of the General Assembly 5 years ago, and when I was serving as a Vice President, I acted on a number of occasions. I've since been the president of the UNDP board and the president of Group of 77 and so on, so no surprises. But I would say that the lesson learned in terms of why things are going well for my office and myself in the 71st session is selection of a really good team of people around you. If you can get the right people, and I've got about 40 people in my office working on, because we've got a special team on SDG implementation, which, as you know, is the theme of the 71st session, getting those SDGs implemented, getting the wheels turning. So the lesson learned for me, and what I'd pass on to anybody, is select your team very carefully, get the right people working with you and for you every day, and it's like driving a Cadillac. Not that I've ever driven a Cadillac, but you know what I mean.
Maybe not these days, you would want to, but you know, it wasn't that long ago that the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist kind of moved the doomsday clock a little closer to midnight. Yeah. And my question to you is the world a lot more dangerous place now than it was when you first started working within the UN system?
I don't know about within the UN system. I've never regarded the world as a particularly safe place, be it from nuclear threat or viral threat. Now we've got the climate change threat. But I have to say that what gets me up in the morning and motivates me for work is the fact that I am a grandfather. I have 3 granddaughters, and I want the best for them in terms of their future being not just beautiful, the way it was for us when we were young, but also secure. And the one that worries me most, actually, is not the nuclear threat or the viral threat, both of which are very real, but is the climate change threat. That has me deeply worried, because we are still, because of human activity, heading towards a 3 to 4 degree world, and we need to stay under a 2 degree world as called for in the Paris Climate Agreement. So we have to change those consumption patterns. That's where most of my effort and talk goes into, is trying to get some reason into human activity, you know, to get us onto sustainable paths rather than just growth paths. I hate hearing the word growth if the word sustainable is not in front of it. Mm-hmm. Because people, as they go over the precipice of unsustainability, will still be yelling growth as they go. You know, the responsible growth is sustainable growth, so that we're not stealing from our grandchildren.
Yeah, I recall you made a statement about, basically you were saying that if we make the peace, then we can sustain everything else with it.
Well, we held this meeting in January where the President of the ECSOC and myself and the President of the Security Council and the Secretary General and the Chair of the Peace Building Commission. It was the first time we'd got us all together and to have a look at this sustaining peace concept, which is the new UN concept for peace, rather than sort of taking bits like peacekeeping or post-conflict work or conflict prevention, seeing it as a continuum. So that's the sustaining peace concept, and that's both the Security Council and the GA passed resolutions on that sustaining peace approach now that we're all supposed to take. So I organized this event to look at how sustaining peace relates to the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think since that day in January, it is absolutely sort of basic principle for us going forward on both the peace and development agenda, that you can't have sustainable development without sustaining peace, and you can't have sustainable peace without sustainable development. So the two go hand in hand, the different sides of the same coin. I noticed that the Security Council, who currently are just returned from a tour of the Lake Chad Basin, that was one of their main messages that they were putting across there as well. So in other words, if we want peace, let's get on with the development work, the SDG work. That's the central message there.
We were, on the climate change issue. I guess a lot of people kind of had their eyebrows raised, because as soon as President Trump took office, he kind of started to scrub the term climate change from the websites in the government of the United States, and it appears to me that the UN and the U.S. might be on a collision course when it comes to climate change.
I don't see that myself. Look, I think that change is a constant, and that includes obviously changing governments from time to time in various countries around the world. So, you live with the cards that you dealt with in any particular era. As far as climate change is concerned, there's in the vast momentum of human thought around the world, there's no question that we're dealing with climate change, and there's going to be some very deleterious effects such as rising sea levels. I mean, that's beyond scientific argument now. Question of how governments around the world react to that. There will be different reactions from different governments, from administration to administration, from country to country. But the great mass of humanity, and I would include within that the citizens of this country that we're living in here, are realizing that renewable energy, for example, is the way of the future. Why are they saying that? It's because it's sustainable energy, as I was saying before. Sustainability is the watchword for us as if we think about our grandchildren, and rather than just ourselves. On climate change, I look around this country, for example, I see really good measures being taken by cities and states and communities around the country, so I don't feel that there'll be too much slippage.
The country you're talking about, specifically the United States.
Yeah, and other countries. I've just come back from the Middle East. They're just amazed about the level of investment in renewable energy in oil-producing countries like the UAE and Qatar and so on. Wonderful to see. You know, people are realizing that sustainability is required, as I say, if you care about your grandchildren. Remember Bismarck? It was Bismarck who said, when asked, what's the difference between a politician and a statesman? He said, a politician is a statesman is a politician who thinks about his grandchildren. And, you know, that's what we're looking for today, because we can see that, you know, our grandchildren are in trouble if we continue to head towards a 3 to 4 degree world, and, you know, not good.
Yeah, I want to read you a statement, which I found very interesting, and I mean, I've heard so many statements here over the past 20 years, but something you said to the effect of, you're telling ECOSOC, let go of old mistrust and ways of operating. And I think that resonates with a lot of people at the United Nations.
Yeah. I was in Geneva at the United Nations a few weeks ago to listen to President Xi of China make that speech. He went to Davos and then he came to the United Nations and he made a speech there. And I was very moved to hear the president of what is it, a quarter of the world's population in China, saying to us, on this planet, there is only one planet, all of us are interlinked. Climate change and plagues and so on do not recognize national boundaries. We're all human beings, and we will either prosper together or we will suffer the effects of. So to hear that you know, strong statement of multilateralism for the 21st century, I was very inspired to hear that. You know, as a human being, it made me feel good that we're starting to see that, you know, there is no plan B for the human species. You know, we've only got this one planet. We can dream about living on Mars and but that's still a very, very long way off, and for the majority of us anyway. So we have to get down to this view of, you know, one for all on this planet, and that's what the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. It's just about equity. As Gandhi said, there's plenty on this planet for everybody's needs, but not enough for everybody's greed. Right? So, you know, we've got to change our consumption patterns, live sustainably, live comfortably, live happily, but we don't all have to, you know, be driving around in, you know, big fancy cars and having second houses and things like that. We've got to look at those consumption patterns. I've just come back from a visit to Silicon Valley, and I have to say I was very encouraged about what technology and connectivity and innovation will do for the human species. I really think that a lot of the solutions lie in that, changing our way of thinking, using the new technologies. I believe will overcome a lot of the problems which we are facing, particularly on that consumption side. You know, if you look at principles that they're developing out there, like excess capacity, you know, that's where things like Uber come out of that, Airbnb, that sort of thing. You know, just this crazy drive for consumption and growth without thinking about sustainability and the fact that we have so much excessive capacity. is something I came away from Silicon Valley realizing, hey, there are good solutions here.
You know, in closing out, I mean, we talked a lot about sustainability, the environment, the connection of peace and sustainability. I get the feeling that if the General Assembly were more responsible for UN actions regarding what's going on in the Middle East, where you just came from, and also Syria, the bloodshed that's going on in Syria over the last 6 years, that they probably would get more done than the Security Council has been able to do in the last 6 years. And I think a lot of people look at the UN and they look what's going on in the Middle East and they go, the UN is not succeeding.
Is the UN succeeding? In balance, I'd say, yeah, we're doing fantastic work around the world. And had the UN not been here, would the situation of war and peace have been different? Yes, I believe it would have been. It would have been a lot worse. So success is a relative thing in regards to war and peace. Are we happy with the situation the way it is now? Of course we're not. You know, we've got the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War, mostly through displacement of war, but also through displacement of climate change. So, you know, it's not a matter of pitting the GA against the Security Council. It's a matter of everybody doing their job properly, and the Security Council works very hard on what it has to do. Obviously, there's room for improvement. Same can be said for the General Assembly, and that's why we have the ad hoc working group on GA revitalization. That's why we have the intergovernmental negotiations on Security Council reform to try and improve the working methods and makeup of the Security Council. But yeah, it's not a case of one against the other. And then, of course, we have the Secretariat. That's the other very important element of it all, who are now working on this new concept of sustaining peace, and we hope that'll make a difference. Our organization is based, as you know, on the Charter of the United Nations, and you know, that is what we have to respect. We have to hold firm to that, and it's a wonderful document, and the role of the Security Council and the GA and the Secretariat is set out very clearly in there.
Terrific. Well, Mr. Peter Thompson, President of the General Assembly, thank you for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
It's spectacular. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Don't go away, because when we were in that beautiful suit, they have to take that microphone off you. The Taylor bill would be extraordinary.
Frank?
Yes, sir.
You might want to, just because we were in the middle of the move there while you were shaking hands, you might want to do that handshake again while we're still on the seat.
Okay. Without me jumping away.
Sure.
I was thinking of the next meeting. Sorry, Frank.
Kind of zooming out there.
Right. Yeah, but I don't have much of a monitor to see that, but you tell me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, you can do the single.
Yeah. I'll thank him again. How about if I thank him again and you can go from there? Does that work for you, Ingrid? Okay. Peter Thompson, President of the General Assembly, thank you for joining us here.
It's a great pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
I hope so.
Okay.
Ingrid, do you need to take some cutaways before he steps away?
No, I think we've got,
All set?
Okay,
Right.
fine. So. Okay, so he's good.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Let me just do this.
Let me grab that for you, sir. If you don't do it just precisely, the dye packet comes out and ruin your shirt. Okay, you're good to go?
You don't have to have your cell phone with you, do you?
Okay.
Take pictures.
Take one back to you.
Would you? Yeah, do me a favor. Could you take a picture with me?
Sure.
Right here's great.
Yeah. Just this way a little bit so you're a little more in the light. All right.
I forgot to wear my heels today. He's much taller.
All right. Nice. Dazzling smiles.
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you so much for your time, Harry. Thank you. Mr. Vico, thank you.
Okay, so we have to shoot in reverse. Yeah.
Does he know he's going to do it? Or?
I'm assuming he does. That's what I was told when we set up this shot. So. I think he's just seeing the president out.
And he's looking in this way here, right?
Yes. Please. Notice I say please.
Yes. Please. All right. Where'd you have it before?
You know what I can do is I can just kind of look down because
We didn't see it.
you won't see it.
We didn't see the mic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Um,
So
So,
it was here.
He'll just be looking this way.
yeah, like this. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Like that.
Do you want someone to sit here? Or help you?
No, well, Ingrid will tell me if I'm looking properly or just looking my usual stupid self. I guess what I could do is I just quickly look down and do that. And do that. You're not going to. No. I was just kind of. I would do this and then I kind of do that, like that.
right.
I would look down and I'd say. Ah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, Lorenzo. Stand by, sorry.
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, yes, sure. Why not? Right.
Sure, stand by for just one moment. Lorenzo, are you okay with the lighting here? Yep, take your time.
Does that work there?
I think it looks spectacular.
And our director. That's the important part. What does our director think?
To just make sure I'm not actually in the shot.
Yeah, that would be.
My shoulder, I mean, you know what I mean, like the shoulder, because my jacket won't match.
That would be.
In the shot, we have to give you an insert fee.
Right, my SAG.
It gives you a SAG fee. I think it says you'll put it on the list of fees. Sorry, Ingrid, I'm a good union man for years. What can I say? I didn't pay my dues last month. So, yeah, sure. Oh, okay. Peter Thompson, the President of the General Assembly, thank you for joining us here. You have a unique perspective as the President of the GA. You're being the first GA President to be chosen from the Pacific States region. Isn't that true? Is that good? Did that work?
If you like, I can do a little imitation
Okay.
of the president.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'll do it again. Peter Thompson, the President of the General Assembly, thank you for joining us here today. You bring a unique perspective as the President of the GA because you come from Fiji, and apparently you are the first President of the GA to be chosen from that Pacific Island area. Is that better, Ingrid? Do you like that better? No. I'm in your hands. Okay. You bet. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. You mentioned the ocean. I'm sorry. You mentioned the Ocean Conference in June. Now, I understand that Fiji is actually co-hosting that as well. And I think that's where he talked about wearing the different hats.
We have many different hats.
He's getting good.
June.
He's getting good here. He's getting good. Okay, and then we'll talk to him about the witnessing of history. During your term as During your term as the President of the General Assembly, you got to witness so far some very historic events, one being the election of U.S. President and the election and choosing of a Secretary General. Tell us about some of the drama that went on with the choosing of the Secretary General. Did that work? Sure, sure, sure. Okay, yeah. I don't know if the camera's moving or what, or so. Okay. Is it like a medium shot?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, okay. As you probably know, okay, 3, 2, and 1. As you probably know, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists have moved the doomsday clock a little closer to midnight, and apparently it's 2.5 minutes away now. Can you tell us what your thoughts are on that? And are we really living in a more dangerous world now than since you've become, let's do that again. Atomic Scientists. Since you've become president of the GA, the atomic, 3, 2, and 1. As you probably know, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists have moved the doomsday clock closer to midnight. It's about 2.5 minutes away now. Do you think the world has now become a more dangerous place since you've become the President of the General Assembly? Ah, right. Yeah, okay, I'll word it differently. Okay. As you probably know, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has moved the doomsday clock closer to midnight. It stands at about 2.5 minutes away from midnight. And since you've been here at the United Nations as the President of the General Assembly, there have been a lot of tensions around the world. And in your opinion, do you believe that the world is a more dangerous place these days? Does that make sense? Is that sort of along the lines what we should? I'll do that one more time. Okay. As you probably know, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists have moved the doomsday clock about 2.5 minutes away from midnight. And I'd like to get your opinion as a President of the General Assembly and also as a career diplomat. Do you think the world is a more dangerous place these days than ever before? Okay. And I think there's only one other one that I'm probably going to, yeah. Now, President Trump, as soon as he got into office, he started to scrub any reference to climate change from government websites. Do you think that the United Nations and the Trump administration are on a collision course? Okay, that should be it. The rest. Thank you for saying that. Yes, no. Ingrid's got very good sensibilities, and I appreciate that. Okay.
You want to do your close again too from this angle, just so
Right. I'm trying to think of a what I can do about that question she just posted to me. It's just illicit trafficking. Okay. Yeah, I'll redo one of those questions. I know exactly what to say. I think, Mr. President, you were a little bit modest there. You left out a pretty important detail in that Fiji is actually co-hosting this important ocean conference in June. And that's pretty much what I did say to him. Yeah, okay, we're good. Oh, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was it. Yeah, he corrected himself, yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was surprising. No, I'm just going to do the reason, which is hopefully the easier part.
Real quickly, did you want to redo the close from this angle so you have something to cut to and from? Remember we were on that 2-shot.
No, I won't. I won't close in a seat. I'll close standing.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, yeah. No, I think they're going to turn it on though. No, I think they just have to turn that on. That's all.
Frank, just so you know, the prompter guy is leaving in 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Gotta be really quick, all right?
You bet.
Good.
Rinzo.
Hmm.
All right, stand by for line input.
Let's see if this.
For just 1 second.
Where would you like me to stand?
So can you stand just right? There's a couple corner marks in front.
Like here?
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And I can get that ladder out of your way.
Oh yeah, this is a great shot. Looks like I have this wonderful halo above my head. Really? Sure, sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here we go, 3, 2, and 1. The UN General Assembly President tackles the tough issues of climate change, threats to the ocean, and our very existence. Reporting from the United Nations, I'm Frank Uciardo. Peter Thompson, the President of the General Assembly, has been witness and participated in witness two. I'm sorry, I dropped the 2. One more time. Just gotta follow me. Go back to the top. I'm just read this straight through. Okay, here we go. 3 and a 2 and a 1. The UN General Assembly President tackles the tough issues of climate change, threats to the oceans, and our very existence. Reporting from the United Nations, I'm Frank Uciardo. Peter Thompson, the President of the General Assembly, has been witness to and participated in some very historic events, including the overseeing of the choosing of a new Secretary General. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Mr. Thompson arrived in his position at a time when the UN honeymoon with the Obama administration was ending and seemingly, I'll just do the pickup from the top of that. Here we go, 3 and a 2 and a 1. Mr. Thompson arrived in his position at a time when the UN honeymoon with the Obama administration was ending and a seemingly adversarial one with the Trump administration has begun. Consider these words of the then candidate Donald Trump, who said, "The United Nations is not a friend of democracy, it's not a friend to freedom, it's not a friend even to the United States of America." Okay. We don't need this. Keep going. Because we actually just said that. I said how more dangerous it took office. Keep going. There. Okay, here we go. 3 and a 2 and a 1. Peter Thompson has called the ocean the lifeblood of our planet, but says we are poisoning it. Okay. Aside from convening the General Assembly in the fall, one of the most important events for Mr. Thompson will come when his country, his native country of Fiji, co-hosts the Ocean Conference in June here at UN headquarters in New York. Did that sound okay to you, Ingrid? Okay. Keep going. I think we can skip over this for time. Keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going. I can skip over this for time. Keep going. Because a lot of this we already said. This is here. Close. Here we go. 3 and a 2 and a 1. General Assembly President Peter Thompson told ECOSOC recently that they needed to let go of all, let's do that again, 3, 2, and a 1. General Assembly President Peter Thompson told the Economic and Social Council here at the UN that they needed to let go of old mistrust and ways of operating, saying that sustaining peace was the way to create an enabling environment for achieving sustainable development. But sustaining peace in the world right now remains a more challenging task for the UN than ever before. Reporting from the United Nations, I'm Frank Uciardo. I didn't hesitate too much on that? That last one? Really? Okay, I would do that last one again, but okay, if you say it's acceptable. Just give me one more read. One more. Right. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. 3 and a 2 and a 1. General Assembly President Peter Thompson told the Economic and Social Council here at the UN that they need to let go of old mistrusts and ways of operating, saying that sustaining peace was the way to create an enabling environment for achieving sustainable development. But sustaining peace in the world right now remains a more challenging task for the UN than ever before. Reporting from the United Nations, I'm Frank Uciardo. Thank you.